Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope that man with the leaf blower does not get any closer. Today, instead of doing a book talk, am doing a movie talk because I need other people to watch this movie. This is the best thing that I've watched in a really long time, and by the best thing in a really long time, I mean probably the best thing since Lord of the Rings. It is really not a film that I have ever heard anybody talk about before, and specifically, it's not one that I have seen other feminists talk about before, and I think you all should know about it, not just for the Caesars in my audience, but everybody. If you were planning on watching Anora, cancel those plans, because this is, as far as I'm concerned, the only movie about sex work that you are ever going to want or need to watch. That movie is called Broken Mirrors, directed by Marleen Gorris. It is from 1984, and I think that the director is from the Netherlands. I don't think he's gonna come around this side of the building though, so maybe not. We'll do what we can outside and potentially move inside if we need to. The premise of this movie is not super crazy. It actually reminded me a lot of the premise of The Hop by Diana Clarke, which, if you've been here a while, you know I absolutely despised. It basically does what The Hop wanted to do. So it's a thriller. It has kind of like two main plots. So the first one is about this woman who shows up at a brothel for a job, and just about her getting to know the other women working there and getting to know the ropes of the trade, so to speak. And the other plot has to do with a serial killer who is going around and obviously killing women in the town. It's basically about one of the women at the brothel and this new woman kind of slowly starting to rebel against their lot in life, and then of course the looming presence of the serial killer and the eventual intersection of those two plots. I promise you, it is not to be missed. It will not disappoint you at all. It has probably one of the most epic endings to a movie that I have ever seen, and definitely it's probably the most, if not one of the most epic movies that is written with like an explicitly feminist purpose in mind. The only other one that I'm thinking of that really came close is, what was it called? MFA, which is about a master's student who starts hunting down rapists on the college campus that she works and studies on. Even that one felt like it was just a little bit, there was something not quite there in how it portrayed certain things. It contained a really graphic rape scene. Felt like it extended too much pity to the women's victims. In Broken Mirrors, one thing that I really liked and that really immediately was clear to me is that it places women's dignity above all else. I feel like a lot of times even with feminist films about women's issues, like, you can tell that the director is like not quite there in unlearning certain things. You can tell that she still has some kind of internalized patriarchal notions, and this film is one where I felt like that truly was not present. That was extremely refreshing, and it impressed me. There is no point in this film where a woman's dignity is sacrificed to make the film more likable. Unsurprisingly, the film is incredibly likable in spite of that. Okay, I think maybe I need to move inside. I think it's just a curse that every single video this is going to keep happening to me. Yeah, it has a really large cast similarly to The Hop. Unlike The Hop, it does a really good job at humanizing all of the women who work at the brothel. It is a diverse cast, but without having the feeling that The Hop did, where it felt like it was like trying to choose like a different flavor of every single woman. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it actually felt like every woman there had a unique humanity and unique personhood to her. And so I felt that that actually was pulled off pretty impressively. Even women who don't even have speaking lines, or women who maybe are relatively unimportant to the actual primary plot, they still feel like they have like character to them. It feels like every single woman in this movie is dignified in some kind of a way. Another thing that I really like about this movie is that it is really not John friendly at all. The men in this are, frankly, absolutely awful. The director does her best to portray men who purchase consent, which is, you know, it's coerced consent, obviously, really hammers home the idea, and the idea that I think is a crucial feminist idea, that there is no price point for consent. And it really portrays the men who buy sex as just gross. Like, it makes your skin crawl. Something that I see in other films about prostitution is they like make it seem like the women are only having sex with, you know, relatively average looking, like inoffensive guys, or just like shy guys, like where it's like basically like you're having a string of hookups with hot or moderate looking guys, but there's just money getting exchanged. This is not like that. Like, the guys are really, really gross, and I mean, they're repulsive, they're terrifying, and there really is no effort made to humanize or try to justify what they do to these women. That, I felt like, was really unlike any other media that I have seen portraying prostitution. I really also think it was an interesting choice that they chose not to show the face of the serial killer until the very end of the film. And I think the effect that this had was that it made it so that the focus, when it was scenes going on between him and his victims, the focus was 100% on the humanity of his victim, while he himself was alienated from the viewer's gaze. So the viewer is given no opportunity to try to humanize or, you know, perceive the serial killer as a person. The only person whose full humanity we see, whose face we see, and whose expressions we see, and for the most part, whose words we hear, are his woman victims. That too, I think, was very, very smart on the part of Gorris. It also, I think, did a really good job of showing all of the many different ways that men degrade women within the sex trade, right? For example, like it felt like it addressed many different avenues in which this happens, and very subtly worked to deconstruct certain arguments that people have about it being empowering. So, for example, there's a night where a ton of guys come into the brothel. It's like really, really busy, and they can't really like handle the demand. And so the madam of the brothel, the woman who runs it, who, you know, theoretically should be empowered and not have to do the actual having sex part of sex work, she basically is demanded from her male higher up that she has to work like the other women at the brothel that night. And so even she cannot escape it. And she also has to answer to this guy who is trying to place demands on her to train the women in doing more extreme and painful sex acts. So he's putting enormous pressure on her to have the women start doing BDSM practices. Eventually, that does happen at one point in the movie. It's not seen as like glamorous. I feel like a lot of this is like glamorized when it's portrayed in a lot of like current media about prostitution. This like really, really makes you understand how uncomfortable it is to have to do things like that when you don't want to. It really nullifies the fantasy of that there is this woman out there who like loves sex work so much that she is like down to do anything at any time and never has any reservations whatsoever. Men liking inexperienced girls who are not comfortable with prostitution is another thing. There is a really, really amazing scene where the new woman at the brothel just has to see her first client. You know, that she's like saying goodbye to the man after he finishes. He makes some comment to her that he'll only be back for like another couple of times because he only wants to see inexperienced women. There's also another part of this where the serial killer specifically like really, really wants to hear his victims beg. You know, when one woman doesn't want to beg and she starts resisting that and refuses to even talk to him, he just loses his mind because he longs to have that kind of power over women. I think that this film really does a good job at showing just the variety of ways in which men under patriarchy, and specifically mostly in ways related to sex work, degrade women and enforce a social hierarchy that places women below men. However, at the same time, what I really appreciated about this is that I, as a woman, did not feel uncomfortable or degraded when I was watching it. Because I feel like a lot of times when stuff like that is portrayed, you feel like it is kind of just like pornified or sexualized in some way. I mean, it's a very big difference to see like what is essentially a rape scene in this movie and like a rape scene on Game of Thrones. Like one of those is like kind of sensationalized and just makes you feel kind of nauseous as a woman. This, it is very, I think maybe it draws more attention to the women's just like disgust and disdain for the men that they have to have as their clients. Like it really hammers that home, and it hammers home the idea of female solidarity over and over and over again. And I think that made me feel like I felt seen by this film. I felt like this film is really directed by a woman who understands these concepts. And again, it goes back to the idea of placing women's dignity above all else in this film. Like, if you want to see a film about how prostitution is really cool and fun and sexy, actually, this is not for you, because this does not prioritize men's pleasure at the expense of women's anguish. I won't spoil anything, but this movie also really casts doubt on the idea that there are any good men. You know, if you're new here, you know that I am not a black pill feminist, but it is like low-key kind of a black pill feminist film. I think it's also really interesting, the choice to have the single decent and genuinely kind man in the movie. His face is never shown. So, and I'm not talking about the serial killer, I'm talking about like a different guy. The only genuinely kind man in the movie, who is like kind of friends with one of the women who, you know, is forced to work at the brothel, his face is literally never shown, and the colors are absolutely gorgeous. Just from a film perspective, I am not a film person, so I cannot speak to all of the details of that, but I will say that it is an extremely well-lit film and a really well-colored film as well. I think that a lot of times with films or just like movies about prostitution, you see like an over-reliance on, you know, like how the women are dressed or portrayed, or, you know, there's an excess of pink and magenta. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, it just is very creatively lit, and it sees itself not as an advertisement for prostitution. I appreciated that as well. I appreciated that despite the fact that it's a film about a gendered topic, I appreciated that the director did not gender the movie by just putting it in just a bath of pink and rhinestones. Sort of on that note, I also want to go back to the fact that part of why I say it prioritizes women's dignity over all else is that it really doesn't glamorize prostitution. So like the women are, you know, they'll like wear clothes that like, you know, you guess are supposed to be kind of sexy. It's really nothing like something like Anora or like The Hop, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm wearing these red bottom heels and, you know, my skin is dolphin smooth, and, you know, like, because some of the outfits that they wear are just like not really cool, and they're not wearing these like designer clothes, and they're not wearing just like body glitter, like it's not, you know, they're kind of like half-heartedly putting on their makeup, and they frankly have not the best attitude when they're going to see their clients, and so it really doesn't glamorize prostitution in that way by making it seem like it is an easy way to get designer clothes and to become famous or whatever. It is seen as just kind of like a pretty sucky situation to be in. Also, when a woman is traumatized in this, it shows. So they show the fact that prostitution is extremely traumatic for many women. And the focus in those cases is on showing that the woman is in pain. Like, her pain is taken very seriously by the film. There really isn't any objectification of like the hollowness that you see behind her eyes. It is really taken seriously as like a human being's pain, not as like, you know, a sexy, pretty plaything that has been tossed aside. I also didn't realize until I heard a woman in this movie scream just how used I was to hearing pain from female characters in visual media that actually sounds almost orgasmic. In this movie, it is not like that. And that also, I felt, was really subversive and really powerful to show pain for what it is, just pain, without objectifying it at all. This movie also makes known men's solidarity against women in a way that is really potent, while also not ignoring the potential of female solidarity against men, or also in spite of men. It prioritizes women's dignity, and I felt refreshed after watching it because I didn't feel degraded. Normally, films that handle heavy topics like this are really kind of a drag down on your mood because it just feels like, well, great, a reminder that it's over for women, blah, 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 blah. This actually felt extremely invigorating and refreshing, and so that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring it to your attention so that you can watch it immediately. The last thing that I will mention in this video is the ending. I truly... You won't understand until you watch this movie because it's like a relatively slow burn as it goes on. The ending, I felt my soul leave my body. It's some of the most epic shit that I've ever watched in my entire life, and I would not have expected it from just like a random movie by like some director from the Netherlands, like a random 40-something-year-old movie, or 50-year-old movie now. You just have to see it to understand it. I will say that it is awfully refreshing to get to see a very bad man's hand trembling from fear. I'm gonna leave it at that, probably. Please, please, please go watch Broken Mirrors from 1984, directed by Marleen Gorris, and come back here once you've watched it and tell me what you thought. Because literally, Anora, I don't believe I've made her acquaintance. I don't know her. She goes to a different school, so on and so forth. This is, I repeat, the only movie about sex work that you ever need to see. The Hop by Diana Clarke wishes that she could do what this movie has done. I am honestly probably gonna try to get a DVD of this because I literally like it that much. It is so, so fucking good. Go watch it right now, and that's all I have for you today. I will see you in the next video. And yeah, don't forget to come back here once you've watched it and tell me what you thought. Bye.
Mais pas aujourd'hui.